Well, why don't we talk about 1964, your election to the House of Representatives, and whether there was a Daley memory or aspect to that.
Daley apparently got word that, I have to go back, Gary, to, this was the year of the famous orange ballot. Right. The legislature had failed to redistrict, so each party slated 117 candidates for the Illinois House of Representatives in an at-large election. And Daley got wind that the Republicans were going to slate the brother of Dwight D. Eisenhower, and
put him right at the top of the
ballot. Yeah. So that's how I get started. He then calls me and asked me to, run on the Democratic ticket.
So it was Mayor Daley who invited you to do this?
Oh yeah, sure. He called and he asked me, and I was thrilled. I really, wanted an opportunity to start at the bottom and move and not come in like a Kennedy near the top. My father had reservations, but it was a great opportunity for me. And when it was all over, I led 236 candidates, including an Eisenhower.
That's good, right. And then, let's talk about your legislative career in the House for 2 years. What do you remember about those years? Let's talk generally. We don't have to focus on Daley.
It was wonderful, and it brings back another politics. There was no partisanship, again, much as I would find out later in the Congress. We worked, Republicans and Democrats, across the aisle to serve the state. And many of us were there for the first time. We were, the blue ribbon candidates, although down there we were sometimes known as the blue nose candidates. But we cooperated, and we developed a vast program for political reform, comprehensive conflicts of interest legislation, for example, working with the Better Government Association, with the Crime Commission, a big program for anti-crime legislation. I had a bill to register and require public disclosure of financing by lobbyists. And I don't know how many, I can't remember, but we passed them all in the House, and then they all died in the unreconstructed Senate, or most of them, not all of them maybe, died. That was, that election brought in some really remarkable people. The Speaker of the House was very close to Daley. Toohey, Bill Toohey. He was a regular.
Right.
And I do remember something of the discipline of those days. We used to often, at the beginning of a session, get what were termed our idiot sheets. And these sheets listed all the bills that were going to come up and how you were to vote for them.
Right.
And they were coming right out of Cook County through. Right. And one of my seatmates was Harold Washington, who later became mayor. And I remember, not taking my orders from time to time, and he was so envious. He said, I remember saying once, gee, I wish I could do that. But he could not without giving up a political future. It made me feel a little guilty, but also very, very fortunate. There was a lot of discipline, but there were a lot of us who were not so disciplined too.
Who were some of the other luminaries in the House in those years?
Well, Ralph Smith later was
your opponent in 1970.
My other seatmate was Phil Goldstick. There was a Bernie Wolfson. We have occasional reunions. One of my oh boy, Gary, it's just so, I can't remember all the names now. It's just been too long. They'll start coming back.
But it had a very distinct tone because of that orange ballot.
There were some old timers like Ab Mikva,
Right.
Tony Scariano.
Right.
Yeah.
Old-time reformers, you
Yeah.
might say.
They were our leaders. They've been there before, knew the ropes.
And then, before too long, 1966, you ran for treasurer. Let me ask first if Mayor Daley was involved in that.
Definitely. It was a bad year, going to be a bad year, and Paul Douglas was up for re-election. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm speculating that Paul Douglas suggested to the mayor that I be nominated for state treasurer to try to strengthen the ticket.
Well, that's an old Jake Garvey idea that went back to 1948, of a Stevenson and a Douglas on a statewide ticket together.
Well, I got the call. It was not the first nor the last from the mayor asking me to run. And it just never occurred to me to run for state treasurer. But he said, you have to take your opportunities when they come in politics. And I did. And it was very good advice. I narrowly won. I was the only survivor that year, but that helped, me move on to the Senate, and it was a wonderful office, badly in need of reform. We had a good old-fashioned patronage system. So I could clean house, hire good people, and we quadrupled the earnings on the investment of state funds and cut the budget every year, thanks to that good old-fashioned patronage.
Well, I was going to comment, if there was ever a reform administration in state government, that was it. And I hadn't heard it explained in terms of relying in part on patronage to make it possible.
Well, they weren't protected by civil service. Remember, back when my father was governor, even the state police were patronage positions. He put them under the civil service. It was wide open, clamped down on the gambling with those state police back then. No, I got, but once I was in office, rarely did I didn't get very many calls from the mayor. They'd be on the strangest, totally unpredictable subjects. He liked to call sometimes just to converse. And I kept thinking as a reformer, we're making a terrible mistake. Here's a man dependent on all of these committees. He's reaching out all the time. He was reaching out to Wally Schaefer. I clerked for Wally, a
Supreme Court Justice.
Wonderful man,
right.
Supreme Court Justice of Illinois. And he was reaching out beyond his elements, his venue, to try to get advice and ideas and information from people like Wally Schaefer. And I began thinking to myself, we reformers never reach out to him. He reaches out to me. We never reciprocate to try to talk together. Instead of making him an enemy, we were running against him. I still regret that. I think that was, a noble effort on his part to which we did not respond. Whether it would have made much difference, I really don't know. I remember him calling, I can't remember the years now. I can remember him calling once and saying, you're always complaining we don't have enough women on the ticket. Well, we need one. And I said, what for? Metropolitan Sanitary District. Oops. But I think I've got just the person for you. And so I called Joanne Alter, who you would know, Gary. And I said to Joanne, you're always complaining about not enough women on a ticket. Well, here's your chance. And what's the office? The what? No, not on your life. Well, pretty soon she was running for Metropolitan Sanitary District.
And she served forever.
She was famous. She became known as Clean Water Alder. He would call every once in a while, or ask me to come in, and I'd go in. You know, I had two offices. He had one in the City Hall for city business, and then he'd walk across the street to the party office. There was that hotel, I can't
Bismarck
remember.
Hotel.
Bismarck, I guess. No, this is before the Bismarck, I think. But anyway, he had another office. Mary Mullen was the gal, ran it, and when it became the party business, he'd go very circumspect. He'd walk the street, go to a different office. His mayor's office, I don't think there was ever one speck of paper on his desk. Just always clean, as if he did everything over the telephone. And every conversation would start, how's the family? And I think he meant it. You know, family was very, very, very important to the mayor, and of course his wife was lovely, was a really wonderful person. We had many calls, but not a great many on. I think when I got to the Senate, if he needed, you know, something done, he'd more likely go to Rostenkowski than to me.
Going back to your time as treasurer of the state of Illinois, I remember you're working with banks. You really reformed the whole system. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was kind of an old-fashioned patronage system. I didn't realize what was happening until afterwards, but the only campaign, Gary, I never had any trouble raising money for. The money just came in over the viaduct, and I was innocent. I didn't know what was going on. But I soon discovered, after getting elected, that the banks all over the state wanted deposits of state funds. And this was, you know, the way you got them. Well, I tell you, by the time the next Christmas came along, I didn't get so much as one posy from a banker. I had a wonderful deputy assistant, Chuck Woodford, came out of First National Bank, and we developed a unique system for awarding state deposits according to how much interest they would pay, but also according to what they were doing with their money. In other words, if they were just buying treasury bills, they'd get docked. We wanted to see that money kept at work in Illinois.